The UK is a multi-ethnic society made up of different races, cultures and nationalities. Be careful that you don't get confused between ethnic, which means race, and multi-faith, which refers to lots of different religions. Britain has always been mixed, although immigration has increased since the UK joined the European Union. One negative effect of having a multi-ethnic society can be racism, the belief that some races are superior to others, and this can often lead to violence. It's also led to abuses of human rights and persecution of people because of their nationality or race. During the Race Riots, groups of people fought because of race, or where a group of people, usually white, have attacked a minority group, and this has happened in America and in England. The Oldham Riots were a short but intense period of violent rioting which occurred in Oldham, a town in Greater Manchester, in 2001. The riots followed a long period of interracial tensions and attacks in Oldham, occurring particularly between groups from the local and wider white and South Asian Muslim communities. The Bradford riots were also begun by far-right political parties such as the British National Party and the British National Front, known for their racist policies. What's more worrying is that the British National Party has actually got more votes in recent years, as has UKIP, who also seem to have quite racist policies. And support for EDL, or the English Defence League, has also grown over time and led to different protests. Because people have what's called freedom of speech, it means that they can say what they like, so long as they're not inciting racial hatred. However, many people within the EDL still put on banners or protests that would be offensive to many people. Others in the UK enjoy living in such a mixed society. They believe that growing up with people from different backgrounds can promote a more tolerant attitude to people, because you learn about other people and their interests. It can also give people a wide variety of music, food and ideas. The chicken korma has been voted Britain's #1 favourite meals in many different surveys, and many regions in the UK have mixed schools, which has led to less racial bullying in cases and more efforts to promote community cohesion. Community cohesion, then, is a shared vision and sense of belonging for all members in society. In addition, the UK government has always offered asylum and protection for those being persecuted, such as Jews during World War II. This has provoked different and sometimes racist reactions from people living in the country, but on the whole has meant that the UK government has shown itself to be a non-racist organisation. This doesn't mean that problems associated with racism have gone away. Recently, the murder of Stephen Lawrence has made headlines again and again as people have campaigned for justice and for less institutional racism in forces such as the police. The Race Relations Act of 1976 was created to try and combat racism. It made it illegal to discriminate against anyone because of their race, colour, ethnic or national origins. It also made it illegal to incite or stir up racial hatred, to use racist language or to publish racist articles. Other groups and campaigns, such as the Community Facilitation Programme and the Commission for Racial Equality, are designed to tackle some of the problems that disproportionately affect ethnic minorities, such as poverty or poor grades in education. The police force have also introduced programmes, as have other institutions, to try and encourage more people from ethnic minorities to join. People hope that these efforts will ultimately lead to racial harmony and equality, where different races can live together equally within the same society. In your exam, you'll need to be able to explain and evaluate the advantages and potential problems of having a multi-ethnic society. You should be able to explain what the government is doing in order to combat racism and why the UK is a multi-ethnic society to begin with. In the winter of 1964, a young man called Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life in prison, accused of terrorism and of campaigning against the apartheid system in South Africa. This system was one of legal segregation of races. Black people were not given the same legal rights and could not even walk on the same pavements. Mandela remained in prison until 1990 and was later voted President of South Africa. All races voted in the democratic elections. While some people did not want a black president, he won and went on to tackle many of the country's problems. Similarly, Desmond Tutu campaigned against racial segregation. He called for a rainbow nation where he dreamed of racial harmony amongst all people. Apartheid was a similar situation to that of racial segregation in America, where black people were not given equal rights until 1965. Here, a Christian pastor or priest called Martin Luther King quoted the teachings of Jesus when he said that everyone should love their neighbour. He also had a dream that there would be racial harmony. These men all shared in their belief in Christianity. Like many other Christians, they believed that Jesus treated people as equals and that God created all humans as equal, or in Imago Dei, in his own image. What's interesting is that many of the people who fought against the likes of Mandela, King and Tutu were Christians as well, and they actually used the Bible to argue against racial harmony, quoting passages that suggest that slavery is acceptable. Today, most Christians do not follow this idea. They believe that the Bible teaches that all people are equal. St. Paul wrote, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ." The golden rule of Christianity is also that people should treat others as they wish to be treated. Martin Luther King also used another famous story in his campaign, which was called the parable of the Good Samaritan. This is an extremely famous story that it's worth knowing for your exam. Jesus was asked by a rather shifty lawyer who his neighbour was, and he replied with a parable or a story. He said that a Jewish man lay beaten on the ground, dying. 2 holy men passed him by, but it was a Samaritan in the end who helped him. At the time, Samaritans and Jews hated each other. This story seems to suggest that Jesus thought people should help and love one another, no matter who they were. There's no longer legal segregation in America or South Africa. However, there's still work to be done, as black communities are still far more likely to be poor, less likely to go to university, and less likely to get well-paid jobs, which suggests that somewhere along the line there is racism. It is no surprise then that many Christians do a lot of work to combat inequality. Today, the Church of England has its own Race and Community Relations Committee, which promotes racial harmony. John Sentamu is also the Archbishop of York, which suggests that things are improving somewhat. For your exam, you should be able to explain how Christians have fought against racism, why the vast majority of Christians believe that racism is wrong, and what Christians are doing today to combat racism. At the same time as Martin Luther King was campaigning for racial equality, there was another black man who was not. Malcolm X was a black supremacist. This meant that he believed black people were superior to white people. He argued that white people had made slaves of black people for years and that this proved that they were inferior. The Nation of Islam, which he belonged to, still believe this today and argue for a process of segregation, where black people and white people live separately, just as they did before, but this time round it would be black people who would get the priority. Malcolm X became a Muslim as he was in prison after his family had been tormented by the Ku Klux Klan, a racist Christian organisation. He was told he could not receive the same educational job as a white person. In prison, when he became a Muslim, he left hating white people, being part of the Nation of Islam, a very specific Muslim sect. After prison, and after many of his campaigns, in 1964, his life changed dramatically. In following the 5 pillars of Islam, he took a journey to Mecca, the holy city of Islam. Here he saw that all Muslims were equal in the eyes of God, and that there were people of different races working together in harmony. When he returned, he left the extremist movement he belonged to and began working with campaigners such as Martin Luther King. He was later assassinated. However, his final message lives on. Most Muslims are opposed to racism, and upon realising this, Malcolm X changed his tune. There are Muslims all around the world who form the Ummah, the worldwide community of Muslims. They all make the pilgrimage to Mecca, the Hajj, just as Malcolm X did. They dress in the same white clothes on this journey as you can see, to show equality. They pray in the common language of Arabic and face in the direction of Mecca during prayer. These are all actions which unite them. This belief in equality stems from the teaching in the Quran that suggests all humans are equal. In the Hadith it says, all people are equal, not a white over a black person, not a male over a female. In his speech during the farewell pilgrimage, the Prophet Muhammad also declared that all people were descended from Adam and Eve, and that it is actions and nothing else that distinguishes human beings from one another.